Hello, and you're welcome to the Ed Innovator Series. It's always a pleasure to be with you, and I am so excited about today. You know why? Because we're talking about our my most favorite topic, STEM. Yes, I'm so excited about today. STEM is something that a lot of people have been talking about, have been asking questions about, and every day I get to have people wanting to understand, what's STEM about. Um, I never used to know or hear about STEM. We were never taught STEM in our schools. So why is it so important now? Anyway, STEM is actually very critical. STEM is, something that you as a parent, you as a school should be implementing right now because we are in what? The digital age. And aside the digital age, STEM helps you cultivate some salient skills that are very important for the future career and for even your day-to-day activities. So really, when you compare um, kids exposed to STEM to those not exposed to STEM, you tend to see the difference. There's a huge difference. Why? Because they are building salient skills that sets them apart from the usual, from the norm, from the normal kids. So sincerely, STEM is very important, and I'm going to talk about STEM today. So, first of all, what is STEM? So, the format in which this will go is that we would take some FAQs, so frequently asked questions. So, some of the questions that I am asked usually when people see me, there are some certain questions they ask, like, what's STEM about? Why STEM? How do I get into STEM? What do I need to do to be involved? And that is what we are going to be doing today. So, first of all, I am going to ask my first question. What is STEM? So, STEM basically means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Okay? Science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. That's what STEM is, the acronym itself. But then STEM is not like any other subject area. No, STEM is not like it's not about doing science. It's not about doing technology. It's not about doing engineering or doing mathematics. No, STEM actually involves the integration of its methodology across the different subject areas. Okay, so it's not about saying, oh, I'm doing a science fair, or I'm doing a technology fair, or I'm doing a mathematics club, or I'm running a mathematics competition. It's about actually integrating STEM into the um, curriculum, into a subject area. So, for instance, I'm teaching maths, okay? And I'm teaching, for instance, let me think of a maths topic, friction. Yes. So I'm teaching friction. Oh, sorry, friction is science. So let's use science. I'm teaching friction, for instance. And from friction, how am I able to integrate mathematics? How am I able to integrate the form? So when I'm teaching a formula, I'm integrating mathematics already. When I'm talking about how the tires are able to move on a slope, without falling off. And I'm talking about science. How am I able to integrate the ability for the tires to the wires on the tires to connect with the road and hold onto the road? I'm talking about engineering already. I'm talking about technology already. So even in mathematics, when we say fractions, for instance, how am I able to integrate um, am I able to integrate other aspects into it? How am I able to bring in the creation of pizzas and the division of pizzas into it? So then we are going into STEM when we are able to integrate science, technology, engineering, and mathematics into the subject areas. Okay, so that is what STEM is about. STEM is not just a special a special topic. It's not about science, technology, engineering, maths individually. It's about integrating it into the whole. That is what STEM is about. And aside that, we also, someone has asked me before that when did STEM come about? Like, how did the STEM thing come up anyway? So the origin of STEM is actually very simple. It was created by someone called Dr. Charles Vela. And it's so interesting to note that 20 years ago, there was nothing, nobody knew about STEM. I don't know if you knew about STEM in school, but I didn't know about STEM. And the truth is that somehow, in some of the activities we did in school, we were integrating STEM, but probably not intentionally and probably not daily. Those days we went out to the museum, or those days we went out on field trips, or those days we probably had the opportunity to go to the farm, or we had the opportunity to use bricks, wood to create things, or we had the opportunity to use paper to create some things. We were actually implementing STEM, right? Only that we did not know that we were implementing STEM, but yes, we're implementing STEM. And then it wasn't exactly intentionally. So we were not doing it intentionally. And of course, when you're not doing something intentionally, there's a tendency for you not to do it as well as you usually would have. So yes, we're implementing STEM there. But someone called Dr. Charles Vela was the one that actually, first of all, brought up the idea of STEM. And I remember at the time, um, from what I read at the time, we had people not even sure of what name they should give it. Should we name it METS, like METS? Should we name it SMET, like SMET? But then eventually it was settled that we should adopt the word STEM, and that's how we came about STEM. Okay, so yes, that's how we came about STEM. But eventually, the two people that adopted STEM and actually began implementing it were a congressman called Ellis and STEM.org. So STEM.org and the congressman were actually the ones that finally adopted it and started practicing, STEM. Okay, so aside that, STEM.org is actually a very interesting organization. I won't talk about them here because we are not going to talk about the company today. We're talking about the methodology itself. But they have started since about 2005, and they've been doing a whole lot in propagating STEM across schools across the world, and they've trained so many educators at this time. Okay, and yeah, that is just a brief on how STEM actually came about. Now, another question someone has asked me before is why STEM? Like, what's so special about STEM? Like, why do we have to implement STEM? Hello. But yeah, STEM is a great tool, a great methodology that you would want to implement because it enhances a lot of skills, not just 21st century skills, a lot of skills. So STEM, for instance, in developing, in incorporating STEM into the classroom, it helps you actually develop collaboration skills. So when children get to work together, when they get to work on activities together, it actually fine tunes their collaboration skills. So by the time they're going into the real world, it's easy for them to, work in teams. So you see that right now, there are some people, even as adults, when they actually get into the real world, it's difficult for them to work in groups or work in teams because it's something they were never used to. They're used to it's my own, it's mine, I want to do it my way because they were never ever really involved in STEM. They were never really involved in working as a team. They were never really involved in group work. But what does STEM do for you? STEM ensures that you build collaboration skills, and that is very, very salient in today's world. Another skill that STEM enhances is critical thinking. So when implementing STEM, children get to begin to think critically. They think outside the box. They want to, know, oh, why does the bulb light? Why do you have to connect it and then it lights? How does it work? Oh, why do the birds sing? Why do they fly? How do they balance themselves in the air? So then they begin to think about all these things. And some of these critical thinking skills are skills that actually helped um, people that innovates, people that invent things. Okay, so when you're able to think outside the box, it gives you the skills that will not only help you think about why something is this way, but what you can do to resolve an issue or resolve a problem if a problem actually needs to be resolved. And that then brings me to problem solving skills. So STEM actually helps children to cultivate problem solving skills. So they are thinking critically and then they begin to think of ways to solve the problems, ways to enhance a particular method, ways to make an approach better, ways to improve daily living, ways to make a particular job done appropriately. It improves, and that's where strategic thinking comes into play. So when, of course, your kids become problem solvers, critical thinkers, of course, even in the workplace, what happens? They begin to sit in places where they're able to think strategically, contribute effectively to the growth of the company or organization where they work or where they have formed. And that's the beauty about 21st century skills that is being cultivated through the use of STEM. Another thing that STEM does is that it also helps children to become more ethical. It actually helps them to become more social conscious and also develop their social conscience. So when they begin to interact with things around them, things in the world, they begin to become more socially connected. So for instance, they're provided with a problem in a problem-based learning environment, and they provided with a problem and they said, okay, they're told that, okay, we have this particular issue in the school, and this school has an issue with children crossing the road. What can be done? What do you think we can do to ensure that children are not hit while trying to cross the road, because the road is very busy, and then children are having to wait across the road for long hours. What can be done, right, to ensure that these children are not hit by moving vehicles? So it helps children to socially connect. It helps them to become conscious. It helps them to develop a conscience, okay, to things around them, to the community. It helps them to become involved. So then they would sit in groups or they would sit individually and begin to think that, okay, we can actually have zebra crossing on the road. And then with the zebra crossing, we can also include community helpers, people that would stand on the road with road signs and ensure that children are crossing safely. Okay, we can also put road signs on the road that says school children crossing. Okay, what will it take for us to actually build a zebra crossing on the road without breaking the bank? And then they can begin to think about buying paint or getting people to donate paints, and then begin to think about creating markers on the road. Okay, so these are things that children can do and will do when they are involved with STEM. They begin to think about the community, they begin to socially connect, they begin to develop a social conscience. Okay, and that is the very, very, very interesting thing about STEM. Besides that, STEM also helps children develop technology skills, so they become tech savvy. Okay, so of course, when you're using STEM, you would want to involve the use of tools. You want to use involve the use of tools. And when you begin to use one tool, you begin to progress to the next tool. So from the use of Microsoft Office 365, you want to use Microsoft 2019, you want to use Microsoft Sway, and then you want to use Microsoft PowerPoint, and then you want to use Google Sheets, and from there you begin, and so gradually you begin to delve into the use of various tools, and that's how we can actually build a technology savvy community or a technology savvy economy, okay, by gradually introducing them into various tools of communication, tools of collaboration, tools for data analytics. They help as much as possible to improve the technology skills of children. And the good thing about STEM is that it also helps, it also fine tunes the skills of adults. You know that, right? So by the time you as an adult, as a parent, begins to get involved with STEM, begin to bond with your kids, begin to do some of these activities with your kids, what do you think will happen? It would also fine tune your skills. It would also help you to be tech savvy. It would also help you to think outside the box. And you're like, oh, why does this balloon float? What kind of gas is in the balloon? Okay, what can I do to ensure that the balloon stays up in the air? It was someone that was thinking and said, oh, we can actually put helium gas into a balloon so it can stay up in the air, right? Yeah, so these are some of the things that STEM helps you do. Another thing is that STEM helps you to become future ready. Okay, it prepares you for future careers. So people used to say in those days that, oh, by the time robots come, robots and machines will take over our jobs. And guess what? People have been saying this from the industrialization era. But today, what is happening? Yes, we have the robots, but then we have people to make those robots work, people to create those robots, people to operate those machines. So, yes, what I'm saying in essence is this: we would be, we would remain a technology savvy, um, technology savvy citizen, but we would be more required to know how to operate those machines. So, how do we operate those machines? That is what you should be thinking about. What skill am I garnering to ensure that I know how to work this machine, that I know how to use these machines effectively? That is what you should be thinking about. So, what am I doing to ensure that I have the right skills, I've acquired the right knowledge to implement and work on those skills. And that is what STEM is about. STEM helps you to become future ready. It builds you for future careers. And you should be thinking about what to do, how to acquire the skills, how I can get my children to acquire the skills that makes them a future ready. Now, the fourth question I will be looking at, and I listed my um, FAQs here actually. So the fourth question I will be looking at is SMART goals. Now, what are the goals you are putting together? What exactly do you want to achieve? What is the objective of implementing STEM? So you don't just want to go with the crowd like, oh, everybody's doing STEM. Oh, let me do STEM too. What is the goal? And of course, your goals need to be smart. They should be specific. They should be measurable. They should be achievable. They should be realistic, and they should be time bound. Okay? So you need to ensure that you create smart goals that help you to actually achieve what you want done, what you want to see. There should be a vision. There should be um, where are we going to? There should be a path, and then you should know what exactly you want to achieve at the end of the day. And in having smart goals, you should have a plan. So just like we have the curriculum for um, Lagos State government, or for the or prepared by the Ministry of Education, you should have a goal, you should have a plan, you should have a growth plan, you should have a goal sheet. So for me, at the beginning of the term, I have a set goal, I have a plan, and I create it on a sheet. Okay, this is what I want to achieve. How do I want to achieve it? How long will it take me to achieve what I want to achieve? So is it going to be within the term? Is it going to be within the session? um, how long will it take me to achieve what I want to achieve at the end of this program? What will my kids be able to do? So you should have a preset goal. You should have a plan as to what you want your kids to achieve at the end of the day. So have a growth plan, have your smart goals set. Have a sheet that gives you direction as to how you want to implement, STEM. And that is the best way to achieve it. Else you'll be running in circles. Okay, you'll just be running in circles and you won't be able to achieve anything at the end of the day because you would have just been going along with the crowd. So that plan is very key. And then at the end of the day, you go, from time to time to that plan to see if you're actually going in line with the plan. And then you can make adjustments along the way, with your plan. And there are different modes of STEM. The different modes of STEM. Even when implementing STEM, there are actually different modes. So when I mean modes, I talk about the delivery. How should I deliver STEM? In my school? How should I deliver STEM at home? So there are five different modes that I want to talk about. We have the push out mode, we have the push in mode, we have the school wide approach, we have the extracurricular approach, and then we have a very, very rare approach. Well, I won't really call it rare because some people actually implement it, which is a great specific approach. So, in a push out approach, what does this entail? Push out approach happens when, schools have the STEM happen outside the usual school hours. Well, maybe not exactly outside the school hours, during the school hours, but they have it as a special. So they have it, either during field trips or they have it as a special activity, during. So, for instance, I might say, oh, I'm going to always have STEM. I'm going to have it as a club and it's going to be for 1 hour on Mondays. So you're having it as a special activity and you're having it, you know, maybe also during a field trip. So that is the push out approach. A lot of schools implement this. I implement the push out, but I also implement another mode of STEM, which I would also talk about. So we have the push out approach where schools operate it as a special or as our in a field trip activity. And that's where that's when STEM is implemented. So you could have it maybe 1 hour during break, or once a week, or twice a week, or once a term, or STEM days, or STEM workshops, or yeah. So even in STEM workshops, you can actually involve your parents. Your parents will be very delighted to participate in some of the STEM activities. You just don't know it. And the truth is that when you involve the parents, what happens? Parents then begin to take it seriously. Parents then want to involve their children. Parents then want to get their children to actually participate in STEM. But when parents are not involved, what do you think will happen? They become, averse to actually doing it because they don't know what it's about anyway. They were never introduced to STEM, even as kids. So of course they might not be interested in participating in STEM activities if they are not introduced into it or given the right orientation about STEM. So the pushing mode is a mode of delivery that involves you bringing someone into the school either to co-teach. Someone is working with the regular teachers to co-teach on STEM, or it could be an external party. It could be someone that you have actually employed in the school to handle STEM instructions only. So this person is teaching only STEM and then co-teaches with the regular teachers and then tries to implement it with the other subject areas. So that is when we have the push-in method, okay? And then we have the extracurricular method of STEM. In the extracurricular method of STEM, it happens entirely outside the school hours. Okay, so this happens maybe as a special activity entirely after the school has ended and then everyone is put together, say, hey, hello children. So every day after school we're going to have a STEM activity. That is very different and that is the extracurricular approach. I love the extracurricular approach really because it sort of gives time. It gives the school or the parent time to actually focus on the activities of STEM. So it gives them the opportunity to spend more time, in doing STEM activities. So the extracurricular approach is something you also want to implement. And the truth is that there is no fast or easy way, or there's no best method. What works for you or works for your school is what you would want to implement. For me, I implement all the methods. I implement extracurricular. I do the push in. Okay, I may not do the push out, but I do the push in, and I also do the school wide approach. And that brings me to the school wide approach. What is the school wide approach about? So, in the school wide approach, we have STEM integrated into the curriculum of the school. So I love that aspect because it means that when I'm teaching science, for instance, I can involve mathematics, I can involve language arts, I can involve technology, I can involve engineering in my science. Same thing when I'm doing mathematics, I can involve every other aspect, and that is the beautiful part about the school wide approach. You involve STEM into every subject area, and that is I think the best approach to applying STEM, really. So it's something you might want to implement, at the beginning of the session. This is a good period to think about it. So how do I want to implement STEM? Am I going to have a practical activity at the end of every class that implements STEM? Or will I just implement it while I'm, talking to my class, while I'm engaging in my activities? Is this how I'm going to go about my STEM implementation? It all boils down to how you want to run it, really. Okay, and that brings me to something called STEAM. I'm sure you would have heard about STEAM. So, STEAM is science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths. Okay, so in STEAM, you actually involve arts in STEM. So, there some school of thoughts just were of the opinion that arts is actually very important. Arts can actually bring it can actually stem the creative skills. In fact, what is arts without science anyway? So yes, arts is actually very good, and in arts there are various branches of art, expression, performing arts, still arts. There are a lot of aspects of arts that you want to involve, broadcasting, drawing, painting, singing, dancing. In actually implementing STEM, you can involve arts by dancing. You can involve arts when you draw. Even when you are, taking your recordings, doing your analysis, you can actually involve arts when you're drawing, for instance, a jar. If you just learned something about distillation, or you learned something about filtration, so you're drawing the apparatus, it's arts, okay? Or you turned a particular science activity into a song, and then you're singing and dancing to it. What happens? You're doing arts. So yes, arts helps you express, and it brings beauty into the implementation of STEM in schools, at home, anywhere you might decide to implement it. And that brings me to the fifth mode of delivery, which is the grade specific. So, in the grade specific approach of STEM, what happens? You actually implement it according to different grades. So you might say, oh, in my school, I do not want to implement STEM in the preschool. I want to implement it only in the elementary, and I want to implement it only for the fifth graders, or for the third graders, or for the fourth graders. So then you're implementing STEM for certain levels, for certain grades, okay? And that is the fifth mode. So we talked about the push out, we talked about the push in, we talked about the extracurricular, we talked about the school wide approach, and then we talked about the grade specific method. So those are the five modes of implementing STEM in your school. So before we round up, I want to also quickly talk about the schedule. The truth is that there are a lot of things to be discussed on STEM, and if we start today, we probably will not leave here. But I'm sure that we would have another day to talk about STEM, and maybe I'll just bring in a special guest. I'm sure you'll like that, wouldn't you? Okay, so yes, for STEM, you should also have a schedule. It's very important you have a schedule. So, like anything, even in implementation of daily life activities, even in at work, even in anything you do, you should always have a schedule, right? It helps with planning, it helps with time organization skills. Imagine just waking up and saying, oh, let's do STEM, and there's no schedule. How would you be able to plan, have the required materials? What will you be using? Will you be using special tools? Will you be using special techniques? Who will be handling that class? So yes, you should have a schedule to guide you, to ensure that you actually have the right materials at the right time, and you're doing the STEM in the right place. And then, do I need to have a STEM lab, a special facility for STEM? And that is the last thing I'm going to end with. You do not really have need to have a special lab. Now, having just like you have the arts lab or you have the music lab, having a special center for STEM actually, you know, gives you that sense of, oh, I'm doing something special. And then I say it puts that spirit into your kids. It makes them actually want to implement it, to do it. So it makes them actually cultivate the interest for STEM. Okay, but it's not compulsory. Even at their seats, even on their tables, their chairs in the classrooms, or at home in their corners, you can actually make their space, their learning space, tuned towards STEM. You can have, things on the wall that talks about STEM, that talks about the different aspects of STEM, or that talks about creativity, innovation. You know, you can have things like that on the wall, talking walls that tells them about STEM already. So you do not really have to use a special center for STEM. And then somebody asked me if they needed to buy special materials, special tools. Truth is that there are a lot of tools in the market, and note that doing robotics or um, building bricks and walls and making robotics work, it's not just STEM. That exactly isn't STEM. Robotics engineering is actually very different. Well, not so different. It's involved in STEM too, but it's just a branch of STEM. Okay, so it's not doing robotics does not mean that you're implementing STEM. You can be building bricks, putting things together, but the act of actually doing those things, making the calculations, thinking about what you can do to join this and this together, joining those wires together, is actually involves STEM. So robotics engineering is a part of STEM, but it's not STEM in itself, okay, until you're actually applying the required skills to develop, you know, to align with STEM, okay? So, yeah, so back to what I was saying, having a lab and center helps. Having the required tools is not exactly necessary. You don't necessarily have to buy STEM kits, have STEM specific or STEM focused materials, but those are also good buys. But around you, you can actually get, kits, tools around you, sticks, brooms, wood, salt. Yes, you can have salt. You can do a lot of things with salt and water. Okay, the soil, um, baking soda, vinegar, um, a lot of things around you can actually be used to cultivate STEM. I was talking the other day about taking your kids on a nature work, nature study. So while they're going around, tell them to do a statistics of all the birds that they see, or of all the bugs that they see in a particular area. And then they begin to do sampling, they begin to count them, they begin to look at the different species of bugs they can see, you know, or they look at the leaves in a particular area, or the kind of plants that grow in a particular area. And then they have a book or a journal where they do their documentation, you know, they document all that they have seen, and they're able to, that is STEM in action, right? So you do not necessarily have to buy a toolkit, to implement STEM in your house or in your classroom. But gradually, as you begin to delve deeper into STEAM, yes, you can begin to get some of these toolkits that would actually help to foster interest and would, make your children excited every time they get into class. All right, so we've talked a lot about STEM today: science, technology, engineering, maths, and then, of course, you can include your A to become STEAM. We've talked a lot about STEM, and I always love talking about this topic because it's an interesting topic. Yeah, 20 years ago, we didn't know anything about STEM, but today we are a lot more in tune with STEM, okay? And you should become STEM literate because it helps your kids build those skills that will prepare them for the future. I hope you had a lot of fun listening to me today because I did. I had a lot of fun talking about STEM. If you have any questions, please feel free to shoot me a DM or shoot me an email on the Innovator at gmail.com. And after watching this, please don't forget to subscribe, hit the subscribe button, and let me know that you enjoyed this session. Until we meet again next week, Saturday, see you again. Bye.